For the past 3 months, the news about the Facebook killer is all over the internet. It even caught the attention of some international media outlets. And this case is going overboard pretty fast. Last February, there was a new Facebook account that was opened in Georgia. At first, it was just like any normal account of someone called FBK. However, soon the user started to post pictures of corpses of people whom he had killed. The user tagged all the friends and family of the victim, and that is how we came to know about the Facebook killer. As a detective, I jumped straight into the case from day one. When the first complaint was filed in this very police station, I was given the responsibility to handle the case. But from that day till now, the Facebook killer has killed 7 people and posted about each murder on his Facebook account. And we, as police, could not do anything. This happened during the early days of Facebook, when it had just started to gain popularity. So the digital forensic department was struggling to track the location of this killer. One evening, I was just sitting at my desk at the police station doing some paperwork. Most of the station was empty, as most cops had left for home. Back then, I was around 33 years old and single. So when a stunning woman walked into the police station and sat in the chair opposite my desk, I was a bit awestruck. She had beautiful blonde hair, dark brown eyes, and a beautiful figure. But the thing I noticed a little too late was the fact that she was crying. "How may I help you, ma'am?" "What happened? Why are you crying?" I asked her. My natural protective instincts kicked in.
You need to arrest me now,"
the girl said while tears rolled down her eyes. "Ma'am, can you please tell me what happened? Why should I arrest you?"
"Because I can't stop. I can't control myself."
Still continued to cry her eyes out. Can't control doing what? This was getting more and more confusing with every passing minute.
"I killed my mother, our driver, and the gardener, and you need to put me behind the bars. I can't stop. I feel a strong urge to kill. Please help me, detective."
She begged me and sobbed at my desk. However, I was struggling to believe what this was. Why would someone turn themselves in after committing a murder, let alone beg a detective to put them in jail? Maybe this woman was mentally unstable and needed help. "Ma'am, you say you murdered 3 people. Can you please tell me where their bodies are, so we can confirm their death and proceed to arrest you?" She seemed to understand that.
"Yeah, they're at my house."
Now, if she was mentally ill, she may be bluffing about the deaths, so we had to see the dead bodies to find out if she was lying or was a mentally ill person. "Well, can you take me to your home, where you've kept the dead bodies?" I asked her as patiently and carefully as I could. Being a detective had taught me enough on how to handle such matters. She sobbed for a while and then said,
"Sure, detective."
I knew it would be wise to take a few cops with me in case there were truly dead bodies out there, so I asked Steve and Marcus to accompany me to the woman's place. A couple of minutes later, we stopped in front of a big mansion on the outskirts of town. "Is this your house?" I asked the woman beside me. She still hadn't stopped crying. It was getting a bit annoying at this point.
"Yes, this is my house."
The 4 of us got out and walked into the property. "Where are the bodies, ma'am?" I asked her.
"I buried the gardener and the driver in the backyard,"
she said, and started walking towards what I assumed was the backyard. Steve, Marcus, and I followed her. We stopped in front of 2 huge pits, approximately 6 feet in length and 4 feet in breadth. The pits were covered with mud, but anyone could easily tell that these weren't ordinary patches of mud. These were unmarked graves.
"The bodies are down there,"
she confirmed. "And where is the body of your mother?" The woman started crying louder when I mentioned her mom. Maybe she truly killed her mother and now regrets her action. Anyway, I had to find the body and call for backup.
"Please come with me, detective. I will show you where her body is."
After you. I followed the woman 2 floors up into the mansion when she suddenly stopped and pointed a trembling finger toward a room at the end of the hallway. I walked cautiously towards the room and opened the door. It was a well-decorated room, but dimly lit, so I couldn't spot a dead body in there. I walked into the room and still couldn't find the dead body. That's when I saw another door in one corner. It must have been the bathroom, and that's where the dead body must be. I entered the bathroom, and before I could comprehend what was going on, there was a knife in my back. It all happened so fast that I didn't pay enough attention to what was going on outside of the room. The knife was stuck at an odd angle. My hands couldn't reach it. All I could hear was her high-pitched laughter.
Got you, detective. I got you before you could get to me.
She was laughing and laughing. No trace of a single tear from before. All I could do was manage to somehow get out of the bathroom into the main room.
I heard that you were looking for the Facebook killer. You were investigating my case, weren't you? But the poor detective had no luck. I bet you didn't expect the killer to be a woman. There is no gardener or driver out there, you know. Neither is there a body in the bathroom. I just wanted you alone so I could finally kill the detective himself, who was sniffing at my trail like an obedient dog. But turns out, you're not so good at your job after all.
She was rambling on and on about how she had me and how she was smarter than me, while I lie there on the floor face first. I was bleeding out, and I knew I would die if I didn't do anything. I knew my men down there wouldn't hear me scream or cry for help, and the backup team wouldn't make it here soon enough. I knew I was going to die, so I decided to ask her one question that had plagued my mind since I took up this case. Why did you kill all those people? Why are you killing me now?
Oh, detective, don't you get it? It's just fun to kill. It's amazing to see the life drain out of my victims. You know, it's so fun to see you die right now.
She giggled even more and just sat there in a chair, staring at me, dying. That's when, with my dying breath, I pressed the panic button on my cell phone, and seconds later, I blacked out. A few weeks later, I woke up in a hospital. I don't know how I was saved or who saved me. All I knew is that the Facebook killer was caught, and I was alive to tell the story of how I almost died on duty at the hands of a serial killer.
Hey guys, my name is Adam. I'm a police officer, but I'm currently on vacation because what I went through a few days ago was so traumatic, so horrible, that I'm still surprised I haven't left this job for good and moved on to something else. You see, I was always a very scary person. I know it's ridiculous for me to be a cop with a personality like that, but I wanted to better myself. I wanted to overcome my fears and help society. Nothing and no one was going to tell me that I couldn't do it. Even though I was still a little scared at the beginning, my training gave me more confidence, and little by little, I managed to overcome my fears and become the cop I wanted to be. But there would be a day when my badge, my training, and my courage would come to nothing, and the worst happened to me in the place where I least expected it. That day, I had already returned to the police station. We had arrested a man. Strange. When we were called, the victim was terrified. He told us that this man was a psychopath, a cruel, violent, bloodthirsty monster. When we arrived at the scene, we met the victim and the criminal. The man was more than 2 meters tall. He was standing, looking at us with indifference. He didn't look dangerous, but when we saw the victim, we took him seriously. She was unharmed, but her eyes were wide open in shock. She did not react to our presence, just stared at the criminal as if he were the devil himself. We arrested the man and took him to the police station. I must admit that this was the smoothest ride we had ever had. Not only did he not resist at all, but he also silently obeyed everything we told him. We didn't understand what was going on, but he gave me and my partner a very bad vibe. We just wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. When we arrived at the station, I was given the order to lock him in one of the temporary cells. he would probably be there for about 24 hours unless the victim gave us a good reason to do it for longer. But I saw that as unlikely, since when we left, she only asked that we take him as far away from her as possible. I was taking the man to the cell, but at that moment, the worst thing that could happen happened. Shortly before, it had started to rain violently, and because of a thunderclap, the lights in the whole station and the whole block were cut off. In that moment of confusion, I felt someone hit me with his body and I fell to the ground. The strange man who accompanied me to his cell was no longer with me. I could hear his footsteps running in the station, but they were not heading towards the office, but inside the station. I thought about running and telling my colleagues, but I couldn't take that risk. The reason the criminal escaped was because I was distracted. A cop can't make those mistakes. I had to fix it without anyone knowing. In the dark, I pulled out my gun and followed him to the office. This was definitely not my lucky day, as the offices were under renovation. I entered the empty office, ready to shoot, wondering where this man was hiding. A part of me was terrified. I was locked in the dark office with a man of a very strange nature. A man who traumatized a person to the point of not wanting to report him and just want him out of the house. But I could not allow myself to be afraid. I was the cop, the person trained to defend himself, the person with a gun, and I was definitely not the one running away in handcuffs. I continued to investigate with my gun in hand, while I listened to the voices of the other cops gathering at the entrance or leaving the place to see if there was light outside. Little by little, I realized that I was becoming more and more alone, since no one would have any reason to stay in the dark or look for someone. Suddenly, I began to hear footsteps in front of me. Those footsteps were slow and intense, but what terrified me most about them was that they were determined footsteps. They were not the footsteps of a person trying to escape or hide. At that moment, I realized that this person did not go into the office to hide from me, but rather to trap me. I was the victim. I was the one who was supposed to be scared, not him. The slow steps picked up speed. The man was running towards me, zigzagging. After a warning, I fired twice and the footsteps stopped. Had I hit him? As soon as I took a step to investigate in the darkness, someone rushed violently toward me. The man used his handcuffed arms to embrace me and squeeze me in his arms. My weapon fell to the ground from the force he applied to me, and in one swift movement, he reached behind me and choked me even tighter. I tried to resist, but it was no use. The strength of the person was enormous, and to make it even worse, he seemed to be trained or to know martial arts because I could not free myself. The man slowly stiffened his arms, which made me understand that he was not even using all his strength. When I least expected it, when I was about to faint, the man gave a huge scream in my ear that stunned me. I lost all my courage. I cried as loud as I could in a dry scream that came out like a breath. The door behind us opened, and from one second to the next, many flashlights were shining on the man, who didn't seem to give up and pressed even harder. The cops were about to shoot him, but out of nowhere, the light came back on. At this moment, the man looked up and simply let go of me, crouching down and taking a passive stance again. The cops arrested him, and I fell to the ground crying. The nightmare was over. The man was arrested for assaulting an officer, and I began my enforced vacation. While I was at home, I learned that the man began receiving several visits from a woman who seemed to treat him with great confidence and excitement. This woman was the same woman who had reported the man, whom we found in her home in a panic. We found out that this woman was not related to the psychopath, and shortly after, we learned that she was writing a book about him. There are things I can't explain, like the power outage or why the man calmed down when he saw lights. But a part of me felt that all this was planned, and that the woman might not be the victim we thought she was.